Hey, you remember, I think I came over,
Right. But they.
must have been in the third or fourth grade.
I can tell you because I have all the class pictures.
Oh, God.
If
Yeah,
you come again, I'll.
okay. You know, the, Barton was the principal, Charles Sloan, who became superintendent later. But the whole Virginia, they wanted to give me something to do. And I was interested in aviation. And
They were that old.
yes. My dentist, when I go to the dentist, and I had a goal on which I wanted to trouble for a teacher. He had a magazine called Klein, and I was so intrigued, height, that when I, after my appointment, I go back, I'd be there for an hour, and he says, what are you doing here? Yeah, we did, yeah. And he was a pilot in World War II, right? Boy, that must be awesome. Wow. And, you know, we're melting that road.
So you don't write it out.
How it's mannered.
I didn't know that.
You rap like
Oh,
that.
you know, they were in the Pacific, and the planes weren't launched. They shot down. They were doing missions, and they needed all their gas, and it depended on the navigator. If they were a little off course and had to correct, they may not get that. And that's what everybody got that,
That was Thursday, was the day after I saw you. So you're doing one of these conversations, so you finished.
I don't like it.
Not yet, not yet. Robert Cohen is a.
Well, we'll get one. Hi, I'm Dan. Hi. Nobody.
And brings in all of us.
How you doing? Oh, yeah, I do now.
Rabbi
That's, I saw your husband on the theme like yesterday.
Family genealogy.
Huh?
Because he was a veteran.
Yes.
Yeah, they did.
On and on.
That's right, they have all the veterans up on the.
It was a wonderful event. All together.
Somewhat.
Oh, it was wonderful. And the entertainment was good, and the flowers were great. The music came good.
Wow. You know, that thing you're wearing is very,
Was that your first one?
it's on regular Yellowstone. Oh my God. Don't watch it.
David,
We were there.
People will ask me.
Nobody ever asked me before.
Now they will.
No.
Boy, we're Robert. You know, I'm not working with Saturday. And I thought, you know, I'm touring around, and, you know, I always get something where Roger has to say. I think, well,
You advised me of the whole Well, they were under that.
Okay.
Secular history isn't that good, you know?
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I used to. And they were really very nice and very.
Oh my God.
No, but.
I know, and I'm just listening.
Good morning, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. Okay. First of all, just a couple of announcements. As I'm sure you know by now that today is Veterans Day, November 11 at November 11th at 11 o'clock is the time that we pause. Originally called Armistice Day in honor of those who gave their lives in World War I, but in the Eisenhower administration changed to Veterans Day. You may know there's a custom in England to wear poppies on this day, and poppies. And the reason, I think, is that the poppies shows up in John McCrae's In Flanders Field poem, which is a lovely kind of reminiscence. Okay, also tomorrow in the afternoon at 2 o'clock, I will be interviewing Jeremy Eichler for the book month events. He's written a wonderful book, which I'm reading, with the title Time's Echo, with the subtitle The World War II, the Holocaust, and the Music of Remembrance. And it's a very, very interesting book. He talks about four composers, Richard Strauss, Arnold Schoenberg, Benjamin Britten, and Dmitri Shostakovich, and their music of remembrance. And it's a multi-layered book, actually. He talks about the experiences of the composer that led to this piece, also something of the broader context of the situation in which the composers wrote. And I think he tries to focus on the different ways in which this music keeps alive the memory of those catastrophes. So the title, Time's Echo, I think is quite evocative for the echo down through time of that particular moment, kept alive through art. So 2 to 3 o'clock, I'll be interviewing him on Zoom. You can get a link to it either by going on the Temple website calendar or the Mandel JCC calendar as well. Okay. The Mandel number is, or address, www.mandeljcc.org, www.mandeljcc.org, and the Temple's website is ttti.org. Okay. Thanks so much to Russell and Nancy Ben-Giat for our bagels this morning in honor of your anniversary. How many years? I'm not 36. 36 years, double high, wow. Many more. How about 2 more rounds of 36? 72 years. I just talked to somebody at the seniors luncheon the other day who had been married for 72 years. So that's our aspiration for you guys. Many, many more. Congratulations. Nancy and Russell also picked up the bagels this morning. Thank you so much. And it says here that live stream is sponsored by the Torah Study Fund. So thanks to the Torah Study Fund for sponsoring. And to all of you who contribute to the Torah Study Fund. Okay, a blessing for the study of Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. We praise you, Lord our God, sovereign of the universe, who sanctifies us through God's commandments, enjoining upon us the obligation to immerse ourselves in words of Torah. Amen. Welcome also to those who are live streaming. So we are looking at the sibling rivalry between Jacob and Esau, which begins in chapter 25. And I don't know about you, I have read these chapters, these passages, many times over the years. It's not really until you focus at some length on a particular issue that you come to recognize certain things. So one of the things I've been thinking about is the spareness of the description of these episodes. By that I mean the Torah doesn't fill in the blanks that we would like it to fill in. It's very laconic. It makes some provocative comments and moves on. So to our issue now of the origins, the causes of sibling rivalry, with that idea in mind about how spare the Torah is, I think it's really difficult to drill down and to discover what are the origins of this phenomenon. You may disagree with me, but I think this story, in a way, captures something of that. So let's go back to 25, verse 19. Just review. Maybe I'll read the verses 19 through 26, and we'll review what we've talked about so far, and we'll move on because this story, not only the story of Jacob and Esau, but their particular rivalry continues for a couple of more chapters with some skipping. So this is the story of Isaac. See where I am, 25:19? This is the story of Isaac, the son of Abraham. Abraham begot Isaac. Isaac was 40 years old when he took to wife Rebekah, the daughter of Bethuel, the Aramean of Padam Aram, the sister of Laban the Aramean. Isaac pleaded with the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was barren, and the Lord responded to his plea, and his wife Rebekah conceived. But the children struggled in her womb, and she said, "If so, why do I exist?" She went to inquire of the Lord, and the Lord answered her, "2 nations are in your womb, 2 separate peoples shall issue from your body. One people shall be mightier than the other, and the older shall serve the younger." Okay? So she gets this message We'll assume that that's a message in words and letters, so to speak, that came to her. And from this, she already has a predilection, I might say, that the older, the one who's born first, shall serve the younger. And what does she do with this? Does she decide that that oracle is true and she better cast her lot with the younger, namely with Jacob? Or does she already have a predisposition to favor a person like Jacob? Okay? So is she guided wholly by this revelation? Or does the revelation combine with a predilection on her own? Her kind of son. Isaac, his kind of son. Verse 24, when her time to give birth was at hand, there were twins in her womb. The first one emerged red, like a hairy mantle all over, so they named him Esau. Esau, another word for Edom, which comes from the word red. So the author is just working with the name of the person and saying something about physical characteristics or mental characteristics based on that name. Then his brother emerged holding on to the heel of Esau. Okay? I infer from this, on too little evidence, that Jacob is already contending with his brother. Or maybe that's an overstatement. Maybe he's just using his brother's departure from the womb to facilitate his departure. Or he may be already struggling with Esau for preeminence. Not you first, me. Now that's the text doesn't allow us to say that definitively, but there seems to be some issue between them already. So they named him Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when they were born. When the boys grew up, Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the outdoors, but Jacob was a mild man who stayed in camp. Isaac favored Esau because he had a taste for game. Okay, parental favoritism based upon the son who was able to serve the parent in terms of a primary need. Okay? So Esau's the guy who can go out and play basketball with Isaac. Isaac loves basketball, and Esau loves basketball. Jacob doesn't. Something like that. You get the point I'm making here. So there's a parental predilection. So we already have now two things. We have this message of revelation, which may already have determined in some sense the parental choice, but we also have the features of the son in their correspondence with the predilections, the desires of the parent. Isaac favored Esau because he had a taste for game, but Rebekah favored Jacob. Okay? The inference is, without saying so, in other words, Isaac favors Esau for a particular reason. Rebekah favors a particular son for no stated reason, except we might infer something. So A favors B for a stated reason. He loved the game. C, Rebekah, favors D, Jacob, for no stated reason, although an inference is possible. So back to 27. When the boys grew up, Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the outdoors, but Jacob was a mild man who stayed in camp. Okay? It doesn't say in parallel with why why Isaac favored Esau, except we could make that inference. And the inference could be stated in the following way. Jacob was a homebody. Rebekah was at home. She grew to know Jacob better, and she saw the connection between Jacob's domesticity and her own domesticity. Once again, this is all inference from an extremely laconic presentation. Once, verse 29, when Jacob was cooking a stew, Esau came in from the open and famished. And Esau said to Jacob, "Give me some of that red stuff to gulp down, for I'm famished," which is why he was named Edom. Edom from red stuff. Okay? Jacob said, "First sell me your birthright." So, again, an inference, and I think it's a plausible inference, that Jacob sees the main chance here. He's making stew. He sees that Esau is famished and therefore desperately wants some food. And guess what? I have something for him, and I'm not just going to give it away. Or to say it differently, my brother has a need, and out of my affection for my brother, I'm going to give him what he needs. No. At least it's a plausible inference. Verse 30, Esau said to Jacob, "Give me some of that red stuff to gulp down, for I'm famished," which is why Jacob said, "First sell me your birthright." The text doesn't say, "And because of this," or on the basis of Jacob's being crafty, he took advantage of the moment. Instead of saying B because of A, B meaning he gave him some food, because of A, that Esau was famished, it doesn't say B because of A, it just says B, A, and B. And we're left to make the connection, a causal inference. I suppose we could agree that it's plausible to say so, but the text doesn't exactly give us the QED. And Esau said, "I'm at the point of death." So we have to ask ourselves, could that be literally true? He's been out in the fields. He hasn't eaten all day. Actually, he had to sleep out last night. He hasn't eaten for 2 days. He slept out the night before that. He hasn't eaten for 3 days. "I'm at the point of death" is literally true. One could conceive of a situation in which that is true. On the other hand, it seems implausible that Esau is exaggerating for certain reasons, which we have to infer. He's more interested in body than soul. He's more interested in the need of the moment rather than the long-term need. I mean, if we think I'm near death is an exaggeration, we need to make an inference about that. It's an exaggeration in what sense? And we've suggested that, or I've suggested, that one plausible kind of exaggeration is that Esau is thinking about his material well-being and the well-being of the moment, and he's not thinking about the further consequences of his act. Okay? On a scale of 1 to 10, what number would we give to the plausibility of those inferences? I say an 8, although you might say 2, because the text does not tell us. This is, in a way, both the problem and the opportunity. The opportunity is the text is so laconic that if we want to understand it as deeply as we can, we have to enter the picture of the text and make inferences. And is the author adroitly inviting us into the situation so that we now become participants in this drama and therefore might come to feel some mirroring of the possible issues that we ourselves have? Are we more interested in making choices in the long-term implications of our choices or the short-term implications of our choices? I have a relative who, a couple of generations ago, at the point of graduating from high school, his father said to him, "You can go to college or I'll buy you a car." And he chose the car. He couldn't be criticized for that, but on the other hand, the fact of the matter is he seems to be taking advantage of the short-term gain as opposed to the deferral of gratification for the sake of developing foundations for some longer term set of consequences. And it looks like Esau may be that kind of person. So he said, "I'm at the point of death, so of what use is my birthright to me?" Okay? So this is not a compliment to Esau. The narrator is not complimenting Esau here. That which is of long-term importance is something that he quickly gives up at the moment when his choice is, shall I die or shall I give it up? And he gives it up. And the Torah might be read as saying, and he gives it up readily without any consideration or thought. That may also be unfair to Esau because the text is systematically laconic and doesn't bother to tell us, did he think about it, and was he so hungry, and so on. But, verse 33, Jacob said, "Swear to me first." Okay? So, why does he have to say this? He gave Esau a choice, or Esau has a choice, the soup or his birthright, and he says, "I'm giving up my birthright. Of what use is my birthright to me?" That should be enough for Jacob. Jacob could say, "Okay, here's the soup." No, Jacob has to press the point. It's not enough for you to say quickly, of what use is my birthright? I need to nail it down. So, in addition to what you've just acknowledged, swear to me. Okay? So what does this tell us about Jacob? That Jacob is crafty, that he's trying very, very hard to nail it down, even though he's putting Esau under pressure. By the way, before I give you this soup, I'm going to take seriously that you're starving. You've given up your birthright. I'm not giving you the soup yet. First, let's sit down and you'll swear to me in some way or another. So he swore to him. Again, a very rapid response to a very serious matter. Swear to me. Wait a minute now. Do I really want to do it? He's given me another chance. Yeah, I'll do it. Jacob then gave Esau bread and lentil stew. He ate and he drank. And last week when I read that, I read the 5 verbs right in a row. Let me read them again in a kind of rapid fire way. Vayochal, vayesht, vayakam, the v is and. X and Y and Z. He did X, he did Y, and he did Y, and he did Z, and he did that. No thought in between, just one after another. Vayochal, vayesht, vayakam, vayelech, vayivez. The last word. He despised, vayivez Esau et habachorah. And he despised his birthright. Okay? So, what do we have here? We have parental favoritism, either based upon the predilections of the parents who find parallels in one of the 2 sons, and, in one way or another, a revelation. If when I'm 18, I get a revelation and I'm predisposed to believe in dreams as revelations, because one of my favorite people in the world is Joseph, and Joseph believed dreams are revelations. And if I believe dreams are revelations, and the person says to me, the voice says, I want you to be a physician, maybe I'm going to medical school because dreams articulate the truth. So let's imagine that Rebecca is like that. So not only are there parental predilections, let's call them empirical matters, there's also a matter of faith. Dreams point to the truth. And therefore, the older shall serve the younger is a key to her as to how to treat her children, which is then augmented by her personal predilection. We can assume that she shared the dream with Isaac, and Isaac too takes dreams as revelations. Very Freudian, wouldn't you say? I'm being a little bit not sarcastic, a little ironic. Freud got to this idea a long, long time ago that dreams are to be taken very, very seriously. Although, as I think I say this from time to time, that the Bible's dreams come from above. Freud's dreams come from below, from our subconscious and so on. Ellen?
What is he giving up? What is your birthright at that time?
So the birthright, I think, is the privilege of the firstborn to inherit twice the amount that the other children do. And I suppose by inference, though I don't know that the Torah states this, also the leader of the family's next generation. Okay? So I think there's the birthright and the blessing. So Esau has turned the birthright over, and now Jacob is the one who gets the double portion at the time of the death of the parent, and also is the leader of the family, so to speak. Then there's the blessing, which adds a kind of a parental, favorite.
But it's not like you're inheriting a castle.
It's not like you're inheriting a castle?
Yeah, or something.
Why not? If there are 2 children and there are 3 castles, the older gets 2 and the younger gets 1. Yeah. Amy?
Doesn't it also set up what happens after that the fittest person for the job is not necessarily always the oldest one? Moses isn't the oldest child. Isn't Aaron older than Moses?
Moses is the youngest.
Right. So and Joseph is, so it sets up the thing that you can't take it as a given that the older one is going to be the natural leader.
Right.
And it's possible that Esau gave up his birthright because he kind of knew he wasn't the person fit to be the leader.
Okay, very good. So what Amy is suggesting, among other things, is that we could offer psychological interpretations of this story, which the Torah assiduously stays away from. So the Torah isn't so interested in the internal workings of the psyche, but the stories are often so evocative that we can't help thinking about motivation. And you're suggesting that Esau may already have a predilection. He may already think that maybe I'm not the person for the job. I like to hunt. If I get up in the morning and I have some responsibilities to the family, being the firstborn, but it's a wonderful day for going out hunting. What am I going to do? Am I going to favor the impulse of the moment, or am I going to favor a longer standing responsibility, the discharging of which keeps me from satisfying today's need? And you're suggesting that maybe Esau, when he gets up one morning and sees the dilemma, recognizes, I'm going hunting. And you know what? I may not be the person for the job. That's your inference, that there may be insight. You're also saying something that's quite important here. Here's how I put it. I didn't create this idea myself. That nature is no sure guide to quality. Nature has an imperative. The one who opens, the male who opens the womb is ipso facto the leader of the family. But can we count on nature thereby to give us the most qualified person? And the answer, the implied answer is no. That nature's imperative is nature's imperative, and not a moral dictate or a spiritual dictate or a social dictate. And the Torah is so steadfast in supplanting the firstborn that one could infer, the author doesn't say so in a footnote. Hey folks, here's what I'm up to here. I'm really not in favor of nature's imperative. Primogeniture has no imperative force for me. The author doesn't say that. If the author said that, we would say, this is what the author's up to. But the author does it over and over and over again, from which we could make the inference that this is what the author is up to. Think about it. I mean, Abel over Cain, Isaac over Ishmael, Jacob over Esau, Joseph over his brother, Rachel over Leah, Moses over Miriam and Aaron, David over his brothers, Solomon, who's number 4 in line, over all the others. What could the author be up to here other than we have to find leaders from their qualities and not from their birth order? So the author is what this amounts to is, this is not just a story of domesticity, how a family works and might work. This also has something to do with destiny. The author is using this story not only to tell us about the interaction among parents and children, but something about the imperatives for a people to which you're pointing, right? Just like the Cain and Abel story is not just about the rivalry between the two of them, but the struggle between farmers and shepherds. Cain is a farmer, Abel is a shepherd. What might this mean? That the author, by favoring the shepherd, is raising up a polemic against sedentary life. The farmer has to dwell on the land, and the potential danger there is that the farmer will value the land more than values which have nothing to do with land or possession. Shepherds live a much more fragile life than farmers. And so this recommends sedentary life. But fragility might be an important component of monotheism, that I'm not in charge of my own life. And when I dwell in booths on Sukkot, this is to drive home the idea of the fragileness of life. And the shepherd understands that the way a farmer may not. I mean, the farmer is subject to nature as well. But the idea of possession. So, the Cain and Abel story is about a lot of things. Am I my brother's keeper? Sibling rivalry, preventive favoritism. But it's also making a larger cultural point about, just to draw a possible inference, the Torah's skepticism about cities. Because when we build roads and sidewalks and skyscrapers, which protect us to some degree from the natural environment, we feel much more in control than we may be. And cities are the locus of growing skepticism about supernatural forces, because we don't see them at work every single day. Cities can lead easily to skepticism, to secularism, to immanentism. Only the causes which I'm dealing with them for the moment matter. Supernatural causes. So there's a large issue at work in the Cain and Abel story. Tower of Babel story brings it to a climax, and so on. Sodom and Gomorrah, which are destroyed. This is all the Torah's polemic against cities. When you get to there's a certain struggle between two mountain covenants in the Bible, Mount Sinai and Mount Zion. Torah and monarchy, right? And monarchy is a threat to Mount Sinai because the king takes over and decides what's right and what's wrong. So just that little story about Cain and Abel, which is about sibling rivalry, can also be understood on larger levels. And it makes you wonder how much what we're focusing on figures in the author's mind. There are other themes at work which, in a way, relativize the unique status of the sibling rivalry issue. Same here. Same here. Jim?
Well, if we look at the story literally, that's a little difficult. Esau could have just grabbed the food. But I think there's another lesson here, because Esau's the hunter. He's out there. And he sees how quickly life can end in a second when he kills the animal. And I think the lesson is Jacob's intellectual and his mother's conniving, all that's great. But if you don't have any food and you're not alive, you can't do any of it.
There you go.
So I think Esau is given, it's implied that he's somehow inferior here. I don't think so. I think without what he and people like him do, the rest is irrelevant.
Well, look, so Jim's point here is that we can moralize all we want about this and about transcendent values versus the needs of the stomach. But let's be clear, a necessary condition for all of these highfalutin ideas depends upon physical well-being. And if you're hungry, that's the prime imperative. What I like very much about your comment is that this is not a story about black and white, the bad guys and the good guys. Even though the preponderance of the evidence, or I think the preponderance of inferences on what the author is up to, I think is that Esau is fundamentally foolish, and that Jacob is the one, this is Amy's point a little bit, through whom the birthright will have more durability. Esau, when it comes to a crisis, would probably put aside his obligation to the birthright. Jacob is clever enough, crafty enough, I might almost say Machiavellian enough. Actually, what did Machiavelli do? In Leo Strauss's words, he created the modern world by saying that morality has nothing to do with statecraft. Statecraft has to do with power. And that Christian morality, so-called, holds back the creation of flourishing societies, so on. So I think that if we were just to say on the basis of the story, who does the author favor? Whose position? And it's certainly Jacob's. Because the author knows, I'm saying knows, that this people is going to face one crisis after another. Let's suppose the author is writing sometime during the Babylonian exile. Let's just say so. And the author is writing this story. And the author recognizes that the current situation, the Israelites in exile, is a crisis for the people. This could be the end. The Babylonians are victors over the Israelites. It's a natural inference to say that the Babylonians' God defeated our God. The Babylonians are not unkind to us. They allow us to live as a community on the banks of the river. They allow us to sustain social and national identity. Marduk defeated Yahweh. The Babylonian, we now live among the Babylonians. Even Jeremiah says in a famous chapter, make your accommodations with the power that has defeated you and wait patiently for God to redeem you. This is an admonition that Jews throughout the centuries have heeded. Jeremiah chapter 29, I think, where Jeremiah said, make accommodations. God will come, just wait patiently. So the author of this story now recognizes that it's going to take craft, it's going to take cleverness, it's going to take persistence, it's going to take a long view of things for the Israelites to maintain their identity and integrity as a people, so that when the time comes, the people as an integral unit can return to Israel. How does a people survive the crisis of exile? I imagine the author of Jacob and Esau's story asking it. And the answer is Jacob. The people in Babylonia need Jacob. They don't need Esau. If they had Esau, it would be over. So I think the author is asking Amy's question. In which kind of person does the future of a people reside? And it's not Esau, even though hunger is an imperative, for sure. Esau is not entirely wrong, he's just short-sighted. Although you could be short-sighted and dead. Yeah, right, yeah. I think it's Aristotle who says you can't expect a hungry person to be moral. You have to satisfy the needs of the body in order to ask that person to lift him or herself into a higher moral plane. Cindy?
I think one of the clever ways that the author depicts the two men, Esau is very physically defined. He has red hair, he is hairy, he's a skillful hunter. These are all things the artist can draw. We have no image of Jacob. It's only from interior, from what he says, that we begin to get an insight. And I think that's very clever, the way the author reinforces all the messages you just.
That's very interesting. Yeah, the author says here in verse 27 or earlier, 25, a physical description, which he doesn't give of Jacob. That's very nice, very clever of the author. The author is as crafty as Jacob is. Stuart?
It's telling that Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew. It's vegetarian.
Okay, what do you make of that?
Esau is a hunter, and Jacob is a farmer or a homebody.
That's very interesting. So the story ends with verse 34.
Yeah.
Stuart is suggesting that the author should have added a verse 35. I don't want your stew. Can I bring some meat to put it in?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Is there anything to be made of this, though? Does Jacob not recognize Esau's need, the kind of person he is? He's not going to be satisfied with lentils.
He's happy giving with lentils.
Yeah. So Jacob, in giving the soup, is still not caring about his brother's need.
Or his brother's desires.
Or his brother's desires. That's so interesting. Let's move to, with all of this swirling around in our heads, let's go to chapter 27. Okay, so When Isaac was old and his eyes were too... chapter 26 is about Isaac, essentially. So chapter 27 picks up the narrative of 25. We've not skipped anything about the boys. When Isaac was old and his eyes were too dim to see, he called his older son Esau and said to him, "My son," and he answered, "Here I am, Hineni." And he said, "I'm old now, I don't know how soon I may die. Take your gear, your quiver, and your bow, and go out into the open and hunt me some game." Okay. So Isaac calls his favorite son for what the favorite son can do for him. "Then prepare a dish for me such as I like, and bring it to me to eat, so that I may give you my innermost blessing before I die." So this is the second parental gift, the blessing. Rebekah had been listening as Isaac spoke to his son Esau. Like mother, or like son, like mother, she's also crafty. She has an intimation that something is going on here, or that this is an important moment in the life of the family. So she's listening, she's eavesdropping. When Esau had gone out in the open to hunt game to bring home, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, "I overheard your father speaking to your brother Esau, saying, 'Bring me some game, prepare a dish for me to eat, that I may bless you with the Lord's approval before I die.' Now, my son, listen carefully as I instruct you. Go to the flock, fetch me 2 choice kids. I will make of them a dish for your father such as he likes." Okay? So, here's what she says to Jacob. "Be Isaac and go out and get some game. Then take it," verse 10, "to your father to eat, in order that he may bless you before I die." Trick him. Jacob answered, in other words, as important as it is to do what is necessary to get the birthright, so it is as important to do what it takes to get the blessing. Craftiness, instrumental reason. Let's use our reason for the sake of accomplishing what it is we want to accomplish, irrespective of whether our goal is moral or not. Instrumental reason as opposed to what we might call inherent reason. Reason as the search for truth. This is not the search for truth. This is for the search for gain. Jacob, verse 11, answered his mother, "But my brother Esau is a hairy man, and I'm smooth-skinned. If my father touches me, I'll appear to him as a trickster and bring upon myself a curse, not a blessing." Jacob's answer is not, "That would be the wrong thing to do," but rather, this would be the imprudent thing to do, because I would be hurt by it. But his mother said to him, "Your curse, my son, be upon me. Just do as I say and go fetch them for me." Okay? So, of the phenomena of the first story in chapter 25 that leads to the problem, parental favoritism, revelation, the predilections of the parents, the needs of the children, all those factors, what we see here is the overwhelming importance of parental favoritism in the way in which this story unfolds. That is the factor that rises to the top in this story. I could say the oppressiveness of parental favoritism. So Jacob raises some doubt. The mother says, "No, that doubt is irrelevant. We have a job to do." So Jacob might, she says to him, "Go out and get some game so we can bring it in. Hey Mom, let me think about this for a couple of hours. No, this is what I want you to know. I really have to take a walk and reflect upon whether this is the right thing to do." Had Jacob said that to Rebekah, what would her response have been? That the urgency is now. Esau is going to be coming back. I want you to do it. And Jacob says to himself, if only I were strong enough to say to my mother, I need a little time. Here I'm exaggerating a little because Jacob is strong enough. But Rebekah is extremely insistent here, isn't she? Parental favoritism and the implications of what it means for her to favor Jacob pushes her. But his mother, verse 13, said to him, your curse, my son, be upon me. Just do as I say and go fetch them for me. He got them, brought them to his mother. His mother prepared a dish such as his father liked. Just like that. She went to the refrigerator and she got this. No. He got them, brought them. She prepares the dish. Rebecca, you're going to accuse me of overstating my point here, but and I feel it myself a little bit. Rebecca, verse 15, then took the best clothes of her older son Esau, which were there in the house, and had her younger son Jacob put them on. She covered his hands and the hairless part of his neck with the skins of the kids, and she put in the hands of her son Jacob the dish and the bread that she had prepared. He went to his father and said, Father, and he said, yes, which of my sons are you? He knows which son it is. It's Esau. That's the one he sent out. Who else could it be? But he has a doubt. Jacob said to his father, I'm Esau, your firstborn. Right, an out-and-out lie. I've done as you told me. Well, let's go on. I'm Esau, your firstborn. I've done as you've told me. Pray sit up and eat of my game, that you may give me your innermost blessing. And Isaac said to his son, how did you succeed so quickly, my son? And he said, because the Lord your God granted me good fortune. Does the Hebrew say your God? I don't know. Elohecha, your God, not our God, not Eloheinu. Because the Lord your God granted me good fortune. I wonder what he means by that. I mean, should we read something into that? I don't know. Isaac said to Jacob, come closer that I may feel you, my son, whether you are really my son Esau or not. So Jacob drew close to his father. I mean, think about Jacob at this moment. He's sweating bullets, isn't he? I mean, he's being interrogated by a skeptical father who really has a growing sense of who this might be or who it's not. Is Isaac strong enough to withstand the threat to his desire? Just as we said about Esau, was he strong enough to resist what was not good for him in the long run? So Jacob drew close, verse 22, to his father, who felt him and wondered. The voice is the voice of Jacob, yet the hands are the hands of Esau. He didn't recognize him because his hands were hairy like those of his brother Esau. So he blessed him. In Isaac's will, Esau gets the larger portion. Then comes the younger son and says, I'm the older son, give me the larger portion of the will. And the father said, well, a couple of questions. Okay, I'm giving it to you. Just like that, he supplants his favored son, the older son, for the sake of the younger son. So, like Esau, like Isaac, right? Responding to impulse. He has some questions, but he finally gives the store away after a few questions. He asked, are you really my son, Esau? So let's go back to 21. He didn't recognize him because his hands were hairy like those of his brother Esau. He blessed him. I mean, he gave the store away. Now he has a couple of questions. Are you really my son Esau? And when he said, I am, he said, serve me and let me eat of my son's game, that I may give you my innermost blessing. So he served him, and he ate, and he brought him wine, and he drank. Then his father Isaac said to him, "Come close and kiss me, my son." And he went up and kissed him, and he smelled his clothes and blessed him. The clever Rebekah puts on the right clothes, doesn't she? Having the odor of the field and so on, of the hunt. The smell of my son is like the smell of the fields that the Lord has blessed. Now the blessing. May God give you of the dew of the heaven and the fat of the earth, abundance of new grain and wine. Let people serve you, nations bow to you. Be master over your brothers, and let your mother's sons bow down to you. There the author is reaching into the future, right? Let nations bow down to you. The rabbis think that Esau is the ancestor of Rome, the Roman Empire. And so the blessing here is, may nations bow down to you. The author may very well know that the nations have not bowed down to them yet, but that's their destiny, that's their future. This will happen. So once again, the author is reaching beyond the confines of the story to implications for the nation. Cursed be they who curse you, blessed those who bless you. An echo of the blessing to Abraham. No sooner had Jacob left the presence of his father Isaac, after Isaac had finished blessing Jacob. No sooner. I mean, Jacob now leaves. And just as he goes out the back door and closes it gently, here comes Esau in the front door. No sooner had Jacob left the presence of his father Isaac, after Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, than his brother Esau came back from the hunt. He too prepared a dish and brought it to his father, and he said to his father, "Let my father sit up and eat of his son's game, so that you may give me your innermost blessing." What a pathos-filled moment this is, isn't it? The author, in a very spare way, is able to bring strong emotion into the picture. His father Isaac said to him, "Who are you?" And he said, "I'm your son Esau, your firstborn." Isaac was seized with very violent trembling. "Who was it then," he demanded, "that hunted game and brought it to me? Moreover, I ate of it before you came, and I blessed him. Now he must remain blessed." You can't revoke a blessing. I don't know why, but that seems to be the assumption. When Esau heard his father's words, he burst into wild and bitter sobbing and said to his father, "Bless me too, father." But he answered, "Your brother came with guile and took away your blessing." Esau said, "Was he then named Jacob, that he might supplant?" Right? So, Yaakov, from the one who cleaves to the heel. Supplanter, a play on the name. "Was he then named Jacob, that he might supplant me these 2 times?" Right? The stew and now this. Not the stew, but the... "First he took away my birthright, now he's taken away my blessing." And he added, "Have you not reserved a blessing for me?" Isaac answered, saying to Esau, "But I have made him master over you. I have given him all his brothers for servants and sustained him with grain and wine. What then can I still do for you, my son?" So Isaac is dragged into Rebekah's game, that the younger is going to get the blessing and be the leader of the family. And Esau said to his father, "Have you but one blessing? Father, bless me too, father." And Esau wept aloud. We do feel for Esau here, don't we? Innocent victim. And I think it's a tribute to the author that though he's a Jacobite, he also feels for Esau. And his father answered Isaac, answered, saying to him, "See, your abode shall enjoy the fat of the earth and the dew of the heaven above. Yet by your sword shall you live. You shall serve your brother." Some blessing. Here's my blessing for you. You're going to serve the other guy. "But when you grow restive, you shall break his yoke from your neck." Okay, so you're going to be subservient to him, and if you're going to break away, it's going to be through violence. Now Esau harbored a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing which his father had given him. Okay, so what do we see here? I think we see in this chapter so far what I'm calling the oppressiveness of Rebekah, who has a plan, insists on it, draws Jacob into it. He's reluctant, but he goes ahead with it. He gets something for it. He gets the blessing of the father, along with the blessing of the mother, which happened earlier. And Isaac, you remember I said last week that basically we see Isaac lying down in these stories. He lies down on the pyre of the Acacia. Now he's on his bed, he's hungry and so on. He thinks he's going to die and so on. So he's passive, and yet, he's not up to the challenge of this moment, but he finally goes along with it. So of the factors that lead to sibling rivalry, I want to say with some qualification that the factor that looms largest is parental favoritism for certain purposes. Rebekah as the instigator, Isaac as, in a way, an innocently complicit with the program, okay? And Esau is the big loser here. Esau is the victim of this. And therefore, verse 41 comes totally naturally to the reader. Esau harbored a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing which his father had given. And Esau said to himself, let but the mourning period of my father come, I'll kill my brother Jacob. When the words of her older son Esau reported to Rebekah, she sent for her younger son Jacob, said to him, your brother Esau is consoling himself by planning to kill you. Now, my son, listen to me. Flee at once to Haran, to my brother Laban. Stay with them a while until your brother's fury subsides, until your brother's anger against you subsides, and he forgets what you have done. Then I will fetch you from there. Let me not lose you both in one day. And Rebekah said to Isaac, I'm disgusted with my life because of the Hittite women. If Jacob marries a Hittite woman like these from among the native women, what good will life be to me? So she gives evidence of some concern for Esau's well-being as well. Okay? So now I want to move ahead to chapter 32. What have we seen in the meantime? We've seen Jacob, who hightails it out of there because he knows that Esau is after him. And he goes north to Haran, and he spends 20 years with Laban. He marries the two daughters, Leah and Rachel. He sires with them many, many sons, 12 sons, 11 sons. Benjamin's not born yet. And a daughter. And then it's the adventures of Jacob trying to escape from Laban. So we're skipping all of that because it's not germane to the sibling rivalry story, although it's very much an important part of the overall story. That's why we're moving to chapter 32. So, it's 32 verse 4, the beginning of a new Torah portion. Jacob sent messengers. Trying to see if I skipped something here. Jacob sent messengers ahead to his brother Esau in the land of Seir, the country of Edom, and said to them, instructed them as follows: thus you shall say to my lord Esau, thus says your servant Jacob. Okay, so evidently it has said at a certain place that Jacob is now on his way back to Israel. God has said to him in a dream, return home. And he knows that Esau is coming after him. I think that's the implication. Okay, so here we're going to have the next episode in the sibling rivalry story. Jacob sent messengers ahead, I'm starting again, verse 4, to his brother in the land of Seir. Thus you shall say to my lord Esau, thus says your servant Jacob. Okay, so he is humbling himself in front of Esau. I stayed with Laban, remained until now. I have acquired cattle, asses, sheep, and male and female slaves. I'm sending this message to my lord in the hope of gaining your favor. The messengers returned to Jacob, saying, we came to your brother Esau. He himself is coming to meet you, and there are 400 men with him. Okay? So, I'm Jacob at this moment, and I just have been told he's coming with 400 men. So, Esau has held on to his demand for vengeance. He hasn't given it up. And finally, he's coming after me to pay me back for what I did to him. And that would be a very plausible inference, wouldn't it be? I mean, Esau's lost both the birthright and the blessing through the trickery of his brother and his mother, and he just can't give the need for vengeance up. And all those 20 years, a whole generation, has not softened his desire for revenge. This is what Jacob is imagining, with plausibility, I'm saying. Jacob, verse 8, was greatly frightened. In his anxiety, he divided the people with him, the flocks and the herds and the camels, into two camps, thinking, if Esau comes to the one camp and attacks it, the other camp may yet escape. Now, this is Jacob-like, isn't it? He's got a problem. There's a threat. He asks himself, he doesn't go cower in the corner. He thinks about what the best solution is to the imminent crisis that he's facing. Then Jacob said, so he does something very practical. He divides the camp, and then he prays to God, right? Maybe God can help me too. He's trying to cover all the bases, right? Both practical and terrestrial, and also spiritual. O God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, O Lord, who said to me, return to your native land and I will deal bountifully with you. I'm unworthy of all the kindness that you have so steadfastly shown your servant. With my staff alone I crossed this Jordan, and now have become two camps. Deliver me, I pray, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau. Else I fear he may come and strike me down, mothers and children alike. Yet you have said, I will deal bountifully with you, and make your offspring the sands of the sea, which are too numerous to count. So, I don't know about you. I'm wondering about the sincerity quotient of this prayer. Is Jacob on the make, and is he trying to muster all the advantages he can? Let me see if I can bring God over to my side too. Is this really an authentic, sincere, spiritual outpouring, or is this Jacob-like craft? And he's even trying to, is this too strong? Dupe God. I'm really a spiritual person. Help me. You made some promises to me. This would be the moment for you to come through. I don't know. Jacob is something of a trickster. Jacob, just to use an allusion to another literature, is Odysseus. The man of, Odysseus, the man of, of cleverness and wiles. Something like that. And the Odyssey is the story of the cleverness of Odysseus at every turn and every threat as he makes his way home. So Jacob is a kind of a type in a way. After spending, verse 14, the night there, he selected from what was at hand these presents for his brother Esau. 200 she-goats and 20 he-goats, 20 ewes and 20 rams, 30 milk cows, camels with their colts, 40 cows, 10 bulls, she-asses, and 10 he-asses. Then he put in charge of his servants drove by drove, and he told his servants, go on ahead, keep a distance between droves. I mean, Jacob is terrified, so he doesn't just give him, as a token of his remorse, a ballpoint pen. He gives him, 30 camels and 40 cows. He's terrified. And he recognizes that it's going to take all of this to mollify Esau. Because he infers that Esau is bent on revenge, and it's been his whole life up to now. He instructed, verse 18, the one in front, as follows. When my brother Esau meets you and asks you, whose men are you? Where are you going? Whose animals are these ahead of you? You shall answer, your servant Jacob. Your servant Jacob. Be sure to add, your servant. Don't just say Jacob. They are a gift sent to my lord Esau, and Jacob himself is right behind us. He gave us similar instructions to the second one, and the third, and all the others. So they go by stages with these gifts. He gets all the gifts from the first stage. Thank you very much. That's more than enough. No, there's something else coming for you. Here comes the second stage. More than enough. Here comes the third stage. I mean, how could Esau resist? He gave similar instructions, verse 20, to the second one, the third, and all the others who followed. Thus and so you shall say to Esau when you reach him, and you shall add, and your servant Jacob himself is right behind us for a reason. If I propitiate him with presents in advance and then face him, perhaps he will show me favor. Perhaps I can win him over with gifts, because it's going to be hard. And so the gift went on ahead, and he remained in camp that night. And then what we have is a wonderful story of wrestling with that man, Jacob, and his hip is maimed and so on. We'll skip it for now. Chapter 33. Looking up, Jacob saw Esau coming, accompanied by 400 men. He divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and the two maids, putting the maids and their children first, Leah and her children next, and Rachel and Joseph last. I'm sorry? Favoritism again. Right. Favors his favorite wife, and at this point his favorite son. He himself went on ahead and bowed low to the ground 7 times till he was near his brother. Esau ran to greet him. This verse 4, maybe I've overbuilt it up, but it's a surprise. Esau is not angry. Esau ran to greet him. He embraced him, and falling on his neck, he kissed him. So last week I said the rabbis think of the kissing as biting his neck. That's the rabbis' subtle polemic against Rome, right? Rome is the antagonist of Israel, just as Rome's ancestor Esau was the antagonist of the ancestor of the Jews. So what does Rome do when it greets? It bites them. And therefore we have to attribute that to the ancestor. In other words, the rabbi's interpretation has historical valence to it, right? But forget that. That is totally in opposition to the spirit of this moment. Esau ran to greet him. He embraced him, and falling on his neck, he kissed him, and they wept. Looking about, he saw the women and children. Who, he asked, I'm going to add a word here, in amazement. Who, he asked in amazement, are these with you? I mean, I haven't seen you for 20 years. Look at the great good fortune that has befallen you. He answered, the children with whom God has favored your servant. And I didn't do this myself. God has favored me. I can't boast about it. I'm your servant. I've got to acknowledge that other powers have done this, not your humble servant. Then the maids, verse 6, with their children came forward and bowed low. Next, think about Esau's reaction to what's happening in verse 7. Then the maids with their children came forward and bowed low. Next, Leah with her children came forward and bowed low. And last, Joseph and Rachel came forward and bowed low. And he asked, what do you mean by all this company which I have met? He answered, to gain my Lord's favor. Esau said, I have enough, my brother. Thank you for the gifts. I have plenty. Like you, I have enough. Let what you have remain yours. But Jacob said, no, I pray you. Jacob is, he's overwhelmed. by what Esau has done. And he just can't get out of his mind that he owes his brother something for what he did to him. And so Esau, it brings him gifts, group after group after group. And Esau says, I'm satisfied with what I have. Esau is the original creator of a line from Pirkei Avot. Who is rich? He who is satisfied with his portion. That's Esau. But Jacob said, no, I pray you, if you would do me this favor, accept from me this gift. I'm still feeling guilty. I really want you to take it. Thank you so much I can't get over how you're treating me, Esau. For to see your face is like seeing the face of God. You have received me favorably. Please accept my presents which has been brought to you. For God has favored me and I have plenty. Like you, I have plenty. And he urged him and he accepted. I can see it matters to you. I don't need it, but I'm going to be gracious. I'm going to accept it. Okay? Who is absent from this scene? Rebecca and Isaac. We don't expect them to be here, but they're not here. So here's what I want to make of this, and then you'll tell me whether you think it's plausible or not. The cause of the sibling rivalry in this family is essentially parental favoritism and insistence on getting their way. Rebecca has a plan. Isaac is too weak, but still he has a kind of a plan. And the boys are the victims of the activities of the parents. When they are out from under the impact of their parents, they solve their own problem. The brothers can solve the problem of sibling rivalry because of, and I don't know how to finish that sentence. Let's finish that sentence together. What is it that allowed the brothers, now out from under the oppressiveness of the parents, to solve their own problems? Candy?
It's brotherly love.
Which means?
Love that comes from two children who were raised in the same family, in the same conditions, and there must have been a great deal of kindness from the parents to the children for them to have learned to be kind to each other.
So what you're saying is, it's both nature and nurture, I might say. They're born in the same family, and this already gives them some intimacy.
They have a tie, right?
I'm sorry?
They have a tie.
They have a natural tie. The default position among siblings is sibling love. It may be altered or poisoned, but that's the initial position. That's your point. I'm not necessarily agreeing with it, but that's your point. And it's also nurture. You're assuming that the parents, aside from creating trouble for the kids, also love them. And therefore they learn something about love in the family. And this is their...
And this story is not about Esau. It's all about Jacob. Because Esau is very logical and continual in his actions. He never hated his brother. He just was an easygoing guy who happened to be a hunter, and somebody had something he wanted and fooled him, and he gave it to him willingly, his birthright, and he just accepted what he was given in life, and he was rewarded for it. I don't know if it was from God or from his own self, but he was rewarded it with peace in his life.
All right, so you're saying that Esau's action here at this last scene is to be expected from the kind of person Esau has always been. So
exactly.
This is not
it's all about how crafty Jacob was, and he felt bad about it, guilty. He knew he was not acting morally right and that he was stealing.
It's an interesting point. So that we do not, according to Candy, witness a transformation in Esau. We just get the Esau who has always been. In that sense, I'm going to maybe stretch this too far. Esau's not a hero here. You're not a hero if you are yourself. You're a hero if you overcome yourself for the sake of something else. I'm not necessarily saying this on my own behalf, but Candy is making a strong point here that Esau is really who he always has been. He was generous and whatever. He wasn't crafty like Jacob and so on. Okay, so that is that. Yeah, Nancy.
I think that they change through time and perspective and self-accomplishment, and which when you feel that you've had your own success, you let go. That then we can be equal.
So Nancy's point is, I'm repeating it also for those who are live streaming. Nancy, your point is that time has had an effect here. Not only the passage of time, but what has happened in time. They have come to feel their own accomplishments and therefore are more receptive to one another. They're not nurturing these resentments as much because they've come to be successful. So could I add, would you agree with this addendum to your point, that being out of their parents' home, out of the grip of their parents, allows them not only to flourish, but to see that the causes of their flourishing are their own resources and attributes. And they're not just, when you're living in your parents' home, I'll go for it here, you don't know whether or not your success is due to you or to what your parents are giving you and nurturing you, and it's only when you leave the parental home that you come to be able to assess your own attributes. And they both saw that they could succeed, and the success allowed them to be receptive and generous to the other. Yeah. This also points to the more the poison of parental insistence, the more the parents are involved in the creating of the problems, the less likely it's going to be, the more likely it's going to be that when they get out of the house and go on their own, they might be able to reverse the course. Stuart.
If Esau is related to Edom, which is the traditional enemy of the Israelites, this brings a new perspective into their relationship.
Whose relationship? The Israelites
and
the Edomites.
Edomites.
Later in the story of David, when David is being attacked by the Philistines, he takes his parents and takes them over into Edom.
Yeah.
So that the biblical history of the relationship between Israel and Edom is mixed. And this may be capturing something of the felicitous part of it.
It's relationships between Israel and Egypt, historically, the relationships between Israel and Edom, the relationships between Israel and, I forget the name of the country.
Babylonia?
No.
Not Babylonia. Write to me later.
Okay.
So you haven't come up with a name. But your point is nevertheless clear that even though Israel is beset with enemies throughout the story, there is a kind of alternative plot, and that is Israel in harmony with its neighbors.
Yeah.
Right. I like that, I like that.
The only traditional relationships that are not resolved are Israel and the Philistines.
Well, and that's true, and remember the Romans take advantage of that when they conquer Jerusalem, they rename it. They rename the land from Judea, the land of the Jews, to Palestine, the land of the Philistines. So the Romans not just had defeated Israel, they turned the knife. I want to read in this regard quickly, if I could find it, something that the prophet Isaiah says. Oh yes, here it is. Isaiah chapter 19. And Isaiah is many hundreds of years into the future. In that day, Israel shall be a third partner with Egypt and Assyria as a blessing. For the Lord of hosts will bless them, saying, Blessed be my people Egypt, my handiwork Assyria, my very own Israel. So that's the image that Stuart is pointing to here. Also the positive friendship among these as a kind of image of the future. I mean, Isaiah is predicting the future, but it's an astonishing piece in the Bible. I mean, every time I read it, I say, wow, that's unexpected. This is in Isaiah chapter 19, verse 24. I want to be sure I call on people who haven't spoken yet. Amy?
Well, I think we're missing, Esau he didn't take the offering right away. He kind of made Jacob a supplicant. He had to sort of beg him to take it. And then, without the parents, they were able to say, okay, it's a draw. And it's the same thing like when Moses doesn't actually get into Israel or whatever they called it back then. The older generation almost has to get out of the way before the next generation starts acting like grown-ups.
And what's the point in terms of the Jacob and Esau story?
That Esau, they sort of made peace, but it wasn't just Esau was this happy-go-lucky hunter. He sort of made his point by being magnanimous. It was almost a punishment.
So does that strike? So Amy's point here is that Esau's not just the good guy. Well, maybe he is the good guy, but he's not easygoing. He's still he's nursing something, and even though he doesn't bring it into prominence, he's still putting Jacob through his paces a little bit, pushing him. Now, is that attribute that you're pointing to? Does that augment, is that by means of praise of Esau, or does it qualify the praise?
I think it sort of refers to the inevitability of human nature.
Okay.
Nobody, unless you have amnesia, nobody doesn't bear the scars of what happens before.
Okay, so you're making the point here, Amy, that this story is more realistic, not as much a fantasy as my telling it may have led us to believe. A little dose of realism. I mean, really, can Esau have given up all of his negative feelings? No, that's not realistic. Let's not make a fantasy figure out of Esau. Let's make him a real person. And he's still realistically harboring something, though he gets through it. He doesn't allow it to predominate. For you, Esau is a greater figure because of that feature than if he were just totally positive. I like it. I hadn't thought of that. Dan?
You know, disliking someone, or I'll go farther, hating someone your whole life takes a lot of energy. You know, you're going to cross the street when they're walking down, you're going to have to watch, are they at the same dinner party? You know, that can wear you out. It seems to me that Esau is the one that's gained because he has freed himself from this to some extent.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do it completely, but you have a working relationship, and your own energy could be more directed at what you want to do rather than constantly dealing with the hatred of another person.
I like that. So for Dan, there's really a psychological lesson here in a way. Be like Esau. Give up the resentment. It's only going to hurt you after a while. What's the saying here? Holding on to anger is like drinking the poison and hoping the other person dies. All right, very, very nice. So Dan is pointing, well, both Amy and Dan are pointing to some psychological features of this situation, which though the author doesn't stop to talk about them, could be inferred from this story. I like it. Vivian?
This may be just my frame of mind today, but I feel that you're dancing really on the contemporary spin here.
Okay.
I see this as such a political story.
Yes.
With a survival story with vulnerability and existential risk at every turn.
Yes.
And what we take of it is eventually you just have to live together. You have to figure that out. And I don't see this as a story of brotherly love, but of expedient terms and negotiations, subtle and sometimes a little brutal.
Interesting. So this is a parable for you in a way.
To me, it's just screaming that way right now.
It's a parable of the kind of forces that can cause a rupture in communities. And we just, in spite of the fact that I don't like you very much, we have to get along.
Yeah.
Parental favoritism, brotherly love, expediency, how a community survives.
And the pivot is Jacob becomes Israel. So if you don't read that as Israel, I don't know where we go with it.
So Vivian's point here is this is about the weal and woe of communities and what it takes. It's certainly a major theme in the Joseph story. Why wouldn't we think that it's been on the author's mind here as well? I love that comment, but... And when you said I was playing with contemporary things, what did you mean by that?
Well, I just kept thinking you were going to go there, but you haven't.
Oh, I haven't. I thought you meant that this whole business about parental favoritism and the parents, that to you is beside the point.
Well, that's the midrash, and that's a really helpful way of looking at it. You've added a lot of dialogue and context to this conflict, which is a very helpful way of reading all this.
Here's my synthesis between Vivian's point and my point, is that the story is multi-layered. It is a story about community. I think you're right about that. But it's very hard, at least for me, I don't know that you'll agree with this, it's very hard to think of this as a parable only. These are real people, aren't they? We feel their emotions, we feel their dilemmas. This is a novel. The novel really comes into Western culture, I think, with European humanism. When we're not worried, when painters aren't painting Madonnas anymore, they're painting real human beings, Rembrandt self-portraits. So the emphasis on human beings and their complexity is one of the features of a novel, because a novel is interested in how people develop, what happens to them, how they act and are acted upon. This is a novel in that sense, isn't it? It's about real people. We feel their reality. So in my view, you've added a really important frame to this. But I think it's got several frames. Lynn?
From what I recall, maybe not from your class this year, but in the past, that Esau was more of a simple man, who was more focused self-needs, basic self-needs, and he wasn't a big thinker. And you started with this about Jacob was told that Esau is coming with 400 men. It's understandable why Jacob thinks that Esau is out to get him.
Yes.
And so Jacob's response to that was to express to him that he wants his favoritism. He turned over the glory. He recognized Esau as somebody important, which maybe Esau always wanted from the brighter brother.
Yes.
And he's giving these gifts on 4 different excursions, so he sees how much Jacob cares about him. And that's all that Esau really wants. So Esau was assuaged, he was softened, he liked the favorism that Jacob gave him at this point. And I think that that's why he came and was so affectionate to Jacob, because he realized that Jacob has feelings for him, or wants his favor, or wants his love. And I think this parental favoritism is kind of like making more of it than it really was. Esau flourished, Jacob flourished. 20 years later, Esau maybe was coming after him with the 400 men that was implicated, but his mind had changed because Jacob expressed affection, respect, and the things that maybe wasn't left with him when he took the birthright.
Okay, so those are rich comments. So I think you're making, at least I hear 2 points. One, we, or maybe I know you're not, this is not a criticism, have overemphasized the role of parental favoritism. The resolution, at least, is between the 2 boys. Okay. And your second point is, let me put it in my own terms, see if you agree with this formulation, that this is really no achievement of Esau's. This is really still the hungry Esau, now not for game, but for praise. And Esau was really bent on revenge until along the way he became convinced through Jacob's trickery that he really cares about Esau, and that's what Esau wanted to see evidence of. And however genuine it was, Esau was in need of another kind of nourishment.
Well, it also turned him from wanting to hurt Jacob to wanting to be a brother again with Jacob.
Right.
I think Esau's original intention with 400 men was to scare Jacob or do something threatening to Jacob, but his mind was turned when he received these gifts. Jacob sent the gifts because it was self-serving, but Jacob also, had a moral code that he really did wrong his brother.
Oh, you think so?
Why he was expressing
You think Jacob was guilty in this, felt guilt. Yeah, okay, very good. Okay, so, Lynn, your point is that Esau, see, Dan's point was it's important to let the anger go. And that Esau let the anger go because he recognized the poison, this is inference, of the anger.
Yeah.
Your view is no, he really has not. Esau hasn't changed in 20 years. He's still harboring the resentment, and we can understand why. And it wasn't so much an achievement on Esau's part that the brothers really didn't, now out from under the parental oppressiveness, my language, able to solve their own problems. Vivian's point is they better, or the community doesn't thrive. You're really saying that 20 years later, the situation is still basically the same. And Jacob finds a way to mollify Esau.
I don't think it's basically the same, because 20 years makes things different.
Uh-huh.
But when they had to confront each other or, reunite with each other, that's how it's solved.
Okay, very good, very good, very good. Ron?
Why do we suppose that the author does not discuss Esau in the 20 years? We see Esau trundles off into the wilderness, angry as all hell. He's hell-bent to kill his brother. 20 years later, he shows up. We don't know whether the 400 men were there, because we're not told, for the purpose of taking vengeance on Jacob, merely that he had 400 men, suggesting that he had done very well in the 20 years. But we're not told anything about Esau. We're not told that he harbored the anger. We're not told that he had a great epiphany, a visit from the deity telling him to release the anger. We're not even told, more to Lynn's point, we're not even told when he shows up with 400 men and got all the gifts, that he decided to forgive Jacob. Why do we suppose the author, who goes into such great detail about many things,
Yes.
doesn't tell us about the Esau that shows up 20 years later?
And what do you make of that? Are you just making a point, or is there some implication?
Well, I don't know why the author left us in limbo. There could have been a reason. The reason could have been this very discussion. Perhaps the author did not want to tell us which of the various possibilities occurred. He wanted us to ferret it out for ourselves.
Yeah.
But I find there to be a hole in the story.
You find a what? A hole in the story.
H-O-L.
Yeah. Huh. That's geez. There is a book by Frank Kermode called The Genesis of Secrecy, which is a book about the Gospel of Mark, the narrative qualities of the Gospel of Mark. And Kermode makes a very interesting point in that book, and that is narrative by definition cannot fill in all the blanks. The challenge for the author is to pick just those things which add to the whole without filling it with superfluousness. Now, your view might be, maybe it is, that to know more about it, my view is, I might say, I have to think about it, that the author leaps over Esau's career in order to get to this climactic moment for the author's purposes. Whatever it is, we have some different views of it. Your view is that more about Esau may illuminate further what is going on here, although you then make the point that maybe the author wants, by omission, to get us to enter in with our conversation. Think about our discussion here this morning. Here's what I want to say about it. It's like life. We don't know the answers to some of the conundrums that happen to us, why it's happened, what am I supposed to do about it. I have a challenge. I think, what should I do? And I come up with 4 possibilities. I choose the one that seems to me to be the most compelling, but how do I know the ones I have ignored aren't also important? Like this story. There are many aspects. Maybe that's a tribute to the author, not only because the author has allowed us in, but because the author recognizes the fundamental ambiguity of the human condition. What are the causes that lead me to do one thing or another? Don't our parents still live in our minds and our hearts as factors we think about from time to time as to why I think a certain thing or why I do a certain thing? Then I have to ask myself, well, wait a minute now. That was decades ago. Maybe I should not think. Maybe there's another. And that's what we've done here. Yeah, okay. So this is another sibling rivalry story with an interesting ending to it, whatever we make of it. I know what I make of it. But lots of compelling alternatives. Okay. We'll continue next week. We'll move to the Joseph story. And we don't have to read the whole story to get to the sibling rivalry issue and its resolution. Shabbat Shalom. I've got to run.
What's the difference between a birthright and a blessing?
I don't know for sure. I think a birthright has some concrete benefits.
Right.
I think a blessing is more the parental affirmation.
Right.
I'm blessing you because I'm giving you the blessing.
Right, right. I understand.
I'm not sure.
And also, doesn't Jacob take this?
That's that funny poem.
Oh, thank you.
When he's giving the opportunity to give Esau soup, he leaps on it with conditions, and Rachel really wasn't a part of that, theoretically.
No question about it.
Yeah.
No. The parents, I think, have a bigger role in this, but the boys do too.
Right.
Those are the multiple conditions. Yeah. Hi.
Curses come up twice in the story.
What has?
Curses.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
What's the story on curses?
Yeah.
The Bible seems to give it a lot of validity. It occurs repeatedly through the Bible.
I'm not. There's certainly one when God is involved. That's somewhat clear. Can an individual call a curse? Now, a curse suggests that something bad will happen. And, God forbid I should curse somebody. I can't make the bad thing happen. So maybe a curse by implication is calling upon a force, a deity.
Correct.
That's a guess on my part. I don't know.
Yeah.
One of my professors at rabbinical school wrote his doctoral dissertation on curses in the Bible.
That's an interesting subject.
It really is.
Yeah.
And a problematic one.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is. Makes you wonder.
Do you want to try to find that doctoral dissertation?
I would.
Okay, so the name of the person is Hanan Brichto. Brichto.
Brichto.
Right. And the title is I think, the idea of curses in the Hebrew Scriptures.
The idea of curses.
I'm not sure it's the idea, but if you punch in curses with Brichto, it'll come up.
Okay.
If it's there, let me know. Tell me your name.
Denise. Denise started telling.
It's so nice to have you here.
Well, I'm glad to be here. I'm sorry I was late.
Doesn't matter.
I needed to be. I watch it all the time.
Oh, I'm so glad.
I get it on Zoom.
That's
or
great.
on YouTube.
Oh, that's great.
YouTube, yeah.
Denise.
Yeah, Brichto. Brichto.